Ladies and gentlemen, your bank account is wrong. Not in the way you think. The number you see is not the cause of your financial state. It's the echo of what you believed yesterday. You've been reading the mirror and calling it reality. Taking the shadow for the substance. Mistaking the servant for the master. I spent years doing the same thing. I would check my balance and feel my stomach drop, not realizing I was worshiping the wrong God. The balance doesn't tell you who you are. Your consciousness does. And when you learn to read from the inside out instead of the outside in, even the numbers must bow to the I am you've discovered within yourself. I know why you're here. You came looking for money. Perhaps you're tired of the struggle. Tired of working so hard and feeling like you're running in place. Maybe you've tried affirmations, visualizations. Maybe you've read the books and listened to the teachers, and still the bank account refuses to change. Maybe you're frustrated. Maybe you're desperate. Maybe you're just curious. Whatever brought you here, I want you to know something right now. Before we go any further, you are not broken. The system is not rigged against you. You are not unlucky and you are not being punished. What you are is asleep. And tonight I am going to wake you up. But I must warn you, what I am about to share with you will not comfort your current beliefs about money. It will not validate your story about why things are the way they are. It will not give you permission to stay where you are and blame the world. What I am going to give you is the truth. And the truth is radical. The truth is that every single thing you see in your financial world right now, the debt, the lack, the struggle, the closed doors, all affect exact reflection of what you have been believing about yourself. Not what you've been saying you want. Not what you've been wishing for, but what you have actually been assuming to be true in the secret places of your heart. You see, the world has taught you that money is a thing outside of you, something scarce, something you must work for, compete for, earn, deserve. The world has taught you that money comes from effort, from strategy, from luck, from being in the right place at the right time. And because you believe this, you have spent your whole life trying to change the outside world. You've tried harder. You've planned better. You've hustled and ground and pushed, and still the money situation remains the same or gets worse. And do you know why? Because you've been trying to change the reflection in the mirror without changing your face. You've been rearranging furniture in a photograph. You've been treating the effect as if it were the cause. I'm going to tell you something that will sound impossible at first. But if you stay with me, if you really hear what I'm saying, it will set you free. Money is not a thing. Money is a state of consciousness. Wealth is not something you get. It is something you are. And poverty is not a condition you suffer. It is a suit of clothes you have been wearing without knowing you could take it off. Every morning you dress yourself in lack. You rehearse conversations of limitation. You check your account with fear and call it being responsible. You plan from scarcity and call it being realistic. And then you fall asleep each night clutching the very state of consciousness you claim to despise. You have been loyal to poverty. You have been faithful to lack. And poverty being the good servant, has remained faithful to you. The pain you feel around money is not the pain of not having enough. It is the exhaustion of trying to change your world from the outside in. It is the weariness of working without rest, planning without peace, struggling without relief. You have been taught that must wait for conditions to change before you can feel abundant. You have been told that when the money comes, then you will feel secure. When the debt is paid, then you will feel free. When the job appears, then you will feel confident. And so you wait. And while you wait, you remain in the consciousness of waiting. And waiting is nothing more than the perpetual confession that you do not have. And because you do not have it in consciousness, you cannot have it in manifestation. You see, you have had it backwards this entire time. What I am about to teach you is this. You must feel abundant now, while the bank account remains the same, because feeling abundant now is the only thing that changes the bank account. You must assume wealth before wealth appears, because assuming it is what causes it to appear. You must claim the end before the middle fills in, because claiming the end is what creates the middle. This is the law. This is the secret they didn't teach you in school, in church, in any self-help book that told you to think positive and work hard. The entire financial world is a mirror. You are not manipulating money. You are rearranging consciousness, and money has no choice but to reflect that change. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, how can I feel wealthy when I look at my bank account and see lack? How can I assume abundance when the bills are due and I don't know how I'm going to pay them? How can I claim the end when the present circumstances are screaming the opposite? And this is where most people stop. This is where most people turn back, because what I'm asking you to do feels impossible. I'm asking you to believe the invisible more than the visible. I'm asking you to trust your imagination more than your senses. I'm asking you to become a traitor to the state of consciousness you have been serving your entire life. And yes, it feels like a betrayal. It feels like lying. It feels like denying reality. But here's what you must understand. What you call reality is not reality at all. It is the shadow. It is the echo. It is yesterday's assumption hardened into today's fact. The only reality is consciousness. Everything else is its frozen shadow. You have been living in a world of shadows and calling it real. You have been looking at the mirror and believing that the reflection is the face. And all I am asking you to do is turn around. Turn away from the mirror and change your face. Change your consciousness. Change what you believe to be true about yourself. And when you do, when you truly do, the mirror will have no choice but to reflect the change. This is not magic. This is not wishful thinking. This is the law of assumption, and it is as precise and impersonal as the law of gravity. It works whether you believe in or not. It is working right now. You are assuming something about yourself, and your world is perfectly reflecting that assumption. The question is, are you willing to change the assumption? Let me tell you what this teaching is going to give you. First, it is going to give you the inner stillness that comes from knowing you are the operant power in your world. You are not the victim of circumstances. You are not at the mercy of the economy, the job market, your boss, your past, your family, your education, your age. You are the consciousness in which all of these things appear. And consciousness is the only reality. When you know this, really know it, you stop being moved by what you see. You stop reacting. You stop fearing. You walk through lack without being changed by it, because you know that lack is not a fact. It is a shadow. And shadows cannot hurt you unless you believe they are real. Second, this teaching is going to reverse the poverty prayer into the abundance claim. You are praying all the time. Every thought, every assumption, every feeling is a prayer. When you say, "I need money," you are praying to the God of lack. When you say, "I hope things get better," you are praying to the God of uncertainty. When you check your account with anxiety, you are bowing before the altar of insufficiency. But when you claim, "I am wealth," when you assume the feeling of already having, when you fall asleep satisfied and complete, you are praying the only prayer that God can answer. Because God does not respond to begging. God responds to assumption. God hardens into fact whatever you claim yourself to be. Third, this teaching is going to free you from the tyranny of checking, worrying, and controlling. You have been trying to manage the outside world, and it is killing you. You check the account 20 times a day, as if checking it will change it. You calculate and recalculate. You worry and plan and strategize, and all of it is useless, because you are rearranging deck chairs on a sinking ship. You are trying to fix the reflection without changing the face. But when you learn to assume wealth in consciousness, when you learn to live, instead of thinking from the beginning, you will discover a peace you have never known. You will stop worrying about money, because in your consciousness, money is already yours. And that inner peace, that Sabbath rest, is the signal that assumption has been made. And once assumption is made, manifestation is inevitable. Now, before I teach you the law, before I give you the technique, I want to tell you two stories. These are not fairy tales. These are not metaphors. These are actual events that to real people who discovered the law of assumption and applied it to their desire for wealth. And I tell you these stories not to entertain you, but to prove to you that this works, that this is real, that you can do it too. The first story is about a man and his wife. They were an exceptionally devoted couple. Their life was happy. They loved each other deeply. They had no major problems, no great struggles, but they had a desire. They wanted to move into a larger apartment. They had been living in a modest place for some time, and they felt they were ready for something more. As they talked about it together, they realized that what they really wanted, what their hearts were truly set on, was not just any apartment. They wanted a penthouse, and not just any penthouse. The husband wanted one with a huge window overlooking a magnificent view. The wife wanted one side of the walls mirrored from top to bottom. They both wanted a wood-burning fireplace, and it had to be in New York City. Now, this was no small desire. Penthouses in New York City are not easy to come by. They are expensive. They are rare. And at the time this couple was searching, the housing situation in the city was such that finding any kind of apartment was nearly impossible. There were waiting lists. There were premiums to be paid. People were buying furniture they didn't want just to secure an apartment. New buildings were being leased before they were even completed, rented from blueprints. The city was full and the city was tight. And finding a penthouse with all the specific details they desired seemed by any reasonable standard impossible. But this couple knew something that most people don't know. They knew the law. They had attended my lectures. They had heard me teach that consciousness is the only reality, that the world is a mirror, That imagination creates reality. And so instead of giving up, instead of settling, instead of deciding their desire was too big or too unrealistic, they decided to apply the law. And here is the beautiful part. Neither of them told the other what they were doing. They each independently made the decision to assume the wish fulfilled. They each, in the privacy of their own consciousness, began to live in the end. Every night the husband would lie in bed and close his eyes. And instead of thinking about where he was, instead of rehearsing the lack, instead of worrying about how they would ever find such a place, he would imagine he would see himself in the penthouse. He would feel himself waking up in the morning and walking to the huge window that overlooked the city. He would feel the satisfaction of that view. He would imagine sitting on the terrace with his wife, having cocktails with friends, everyone thoroughly enjoying it. He would see the fireplace burning. He would feel the warmth. He would hear the laughter, and he would fill his mind, his entire consciousness, with the feeling of already being there, not going there, not hoping to be there, already there, living from the end. And the wife, unknown to him, was doing the same thing. She would lie down at night and imagine herself in the mirrored penthouse. She would see herself walking past the mirrors, seeing her reflection, feeling the spaciousness, the beauty, the luxury of it. She would imagine hosting gatherings, enjoying the fireplace, waking up every morning in the place of her dreams, and she would fall asleep in that feeling. Not the feeling of wanting, the feeling of having, the feeling of it being done. They did this the after night through March, through April. They continued to search in the outer world. Yes, they looked at apartments, they made inquiries. But the searching was not frantic. It was not desperate, because in their consciousness, they were already living in the penthouse. The outer search was just the bridge of incidents beginning to form. Now here is what is remarkable. The husband told me later that, after about 2 weeks of this practice, something shifted in him. He said he would wake in the morning, and for a few seconds he would forget he was not already in the penthouse. He would lie there feeling the peace, the satisfaction, the naturalness of living there. And then he would open his eyes and see his current bedroom. And instead of feeling disappointment, he would smile, because he knew. He knew that what was real in consciousness must become real in form. He had no doubt. The assumption had taken root so deeply that the outer contradiction no longer moved him. The wife experienced something similar. She told me that she began to feel wealthy in a way she had never felt before. Not because her circumstances had changed, but because her consciousness had changed. She would walk through the city, and instead of feeling envious of those who lived in beautiful spaces, she would feel kinship with them. She would pass by Central Park and think, "Soon I will see this view every morning from my own window," not as a wish, but as a knowing, not as a hope, but as a fact already accomplished in the only place that matters: consciousness. And here is the bridge that formed. They continued looking at apartments, but now without attachment. One day, almost by accident, they found themselves on Upper Fifth Avenue. A new building was just being completed. The agent mentioned almost in passing that there was a penthouse available. They went to see it, and the moment they stepped inside, they both felt it. This was the place they had been living in their imagination. The huge window overlooking Central Park, exactly as the husband had imagined. The mirrored wall exactly as the wife had envisioned. The fireplace burning in their mind's eye for weeks. Now here in physical form waiting to be lit. And sure enough, they found a penthouse on Upper Avenue facing Central Park. It was in a new building just being completed. It had the huge window. It had the terrace. It had the fireplace. But there was one problem. The rent was exorbitant. It was several thousand a year, more than they had planned to spend. It was beyond what they thought they'd afford. Most people would have stopped there. Most people would have said, "See, it's impossible. I knew it wouldn't work." But this couple did not stop assuming. They made an offer. They proposed a rental amount they felt was fair. The agent agreed to forward it to the owners for consideration. And then they continued to assume. They continued to fall asleep in the penthouse. They continued to live from the end. And do you know what happened? In early summer, the owners accepted their offer. The couple moved into the penthouse. They got everything they had imagined. The window, the mirrors, the fireplace, the view of Central Park, the terrace, all of it. And they got it at the price they had proposed, not the exorbitant price that was originally asked. Now, let me ask you, did this couple attract the penthouse? Did they manifest it through some mystical power? No. What they did was far more profound. They changed their state of consciousness. They stopped being the couple who wanted a penthouse and became the couple who already lived in a penthouse. And when they made that change in consciousness, when they truly assumed the end, the entire outer world had no choice but to rearrange itself to match the assumption. The city did not change. There were still housing shortages. There were still waiting lists. But for this couple, in their world, a penthouse appeared exactly as they had imagined it. Because your world is not the world. Your world is your consciousness pushed out. And when you change your consciousness, you change your world. Let me tell you the second story. This one is about a man who worked as an executive at a bank. He had been with the bank for many years. He worked hard. He was competent. He was reliable, but he felt stuck. He felt undervalued. He wanted to advance in his career. But every time he approached his superiors about a promotion, about more responsibility, about a higher position, they told him the same thing. There was no room for advancement. The positions above him were filled. He should be grateful for what he had. And if he was unhappy, well, he could always seek employment elsewhere. This man felt trapped. He had a family to support. He had children who needed to go to good schools, to preparatories, to college. His current salary was not enough to provide the kind of life he wanted for them. He needed more money. He needed a better position. But the bank had made it clear there was no path forward for him. He could stay where he was or he could leave. Those were his only options. Or so it seemed. One day this man came to me. He told me his situation. He told me his desire. And I asked him, "What is it that you really want? What is the position that you would love more than anything in the world?" And he told me. He said, "I would love to manage the investment funds of a large institution, a foundation, a great university, something with real responsibility, something meaningful. Somewhere I could use my knowledge and my skills and be valued for them. Somewhere the money would reflect my worth." I listened to him, and then I explained to him the law of assumption. I told him that his current situation was not a fact. It was a reflection, a shadow, an echo of what believed about himself. I told him that if he wanted to change his circumstances, he had to change his concept of himself. He had to stop seeing himself as the stuck bank employee and start seeing himself as the investment manager of a great institution. Not in the future now. In consciousness. I told him that the outer world would never change until the inner world changed first. And I gave him a specific instruction. Every night before you fall asleep, I told him, I want you to imagine that you are retiring at the end of one of the most important and successful days of your life. I want you to feel that today you closed a deal. Today you signed the contract to join the kind of organization you have always wanted to work for. Today you stepped into the position you have always desired. And I want you to feel the satisfaction of that, the relief, the sense of accomplishment, the naturalness of it. I want you to fill your consciousness with the feeling that it is done. And then from that feeling fall asleep. He accepted and he began every single night without exception. He would lie down in bed and assume the wish fulfilled. He would imagine the day being over, the deal being closed, the position being secured. He would feel the contentment, the peace, the sense of rightness. And from that feeling he would drift into sleep night after night through December, through January. He did not know how it would happen. He did not plan the steps. He did not strategize. He simply assumed the end and let the middle take care of itself. Now, let me tell you what he experienced during those weeks, because this is important for you to understand. There were nights when it was difficult. Nights when his mind would wander to his current situation, to the bills that needed paying, to the conversation with his superior who had told him there was no future for him at the bank. On those nights, doubt would creep in. He would think, this is foolish. This is not working. Nothing is changing. But he had made a commitment, and so he would gently bring his attention back to the assumption. He would return to the feeling of the wish fulfilled. He would re-enter the state of a successful deal closed, the perfect position secured, and he would fall asleep from that state. He told me later that around the third week of January something remarkable happened. He stopped worrying about money. Not because his outer circumstances had changed. They hadn't. His salary was the same. His responsibilities were the same. But inwardly he was a different man. He was no longer the stuck bank employee hoping for a change. He was the investment executive whose services were valued and sought after. He was living from the end. And from that state the money worries simply dissolved. They had nothing to attach to anymore. And then in early February something happened. A director of one of the wealthiest foundations in the world called him out of the blue. Completely unexpected. And this director said, "We've heard about your work. We're impressed with your background. Would you be interested in joining our foundation in an executive capacity handling investments just like that?" No job search, no resume sent, no networking. The bridge appeared. The opportunity came and all this man had to do was say yes. He accepted the position. Today he works at that foundation. His income is substantially higher than it was at the bank. He has the assurance of steady progress. He has responsibility. He has respect. He has the exact position he imagined, and it exceeded even what he hoped for. But here is what you must understand. This man did not attract the job. He did not make it happen through effort or cleverness. What he did was change his state of consciousness. He stopped being the man stuck at the bank and became the man who managed investments for a great foundation. And once he became that in consciousness, the outer world had no choice but to conform. The phone call came, the offer was made. The door opened, because doors always open for the state of consciousness you are in. If you are in the state of stuck, doors remain closed. If you are in the state of employed, you remain. But if you change the state, if you assume the end, the doors open by themselves. Let me tell you one more story before I move into the teaching. This one is brief, but it illustrates the principle beautifully. There was a young woman, an artist, who was struggling financially. She made beautiful paintings, but no one was buying them. She worked part-time jobs to pay her rent, jobs she hated. Jobs that left her exhausted and little time to paint. She would go to galleries and see other artists' work selling for thousands of dollars, and she would feel despair. She would think, why not me? Why do they succeed and I struggle? One day she came to my lecture, and she heard me say that the outer world is a mirror of inner assumptions. She realized that she had been assuming she was a starving artist. She had been wearing that identity like a badge. She would introduce herself at gatherings and say, I'm an artist, but I can't make a living from it. She had been claiming poverty as part of her artistic identity. And of course, poverty is what she experienced. So she decided to change the assumption. She began to assume she was a successful artist whose work was valued and sought after. Every night before sleep, she would imagine standing in a gallery, her paintings on the walls, little red sold stickers on each one. She would imagine collectors approaching her, complimenting her work, asking to commission pieces. She would feel the satisfaction of being valued, of making a living doing what she loved. She would imagine checking her bank account and seeing abundance from her art sales. And from this feeling, she would fall asleep. She did this for several weeks. And during the day when someone would ask what she did, she would no longer say, I'm a struggling artist. She would say, I'm an artist. My work is selling beautifully. At first, it felt like a lie, but she persisted. She maintained the state, and then the bridge began to form. A friend of a friend mentioned her work to the gallery owner. The gallery owner asked to see her portfolio. Within 2 weeks, the gallery offered her a show. Within a month, 3 of her paintings sold. Within 6 months, she was making more from her art than she had ever made at her part-time jobs. Today, she paints full lives from her art. She is the successful artist she assumed herself to be. Did the world change? No. There were always galleries. There were always collectors. There were always people who would pay for good art. What changed was her assumption about herself. She stopped being the starving artist and became the successful artist. And the outer world rearranged itself to match the change. Now, why did I tell you these 3 stories? Because I want you to see that this is not theory. This is not philosophy. This is not spiritual basing or positive thinking or any of the weak, watered-down teachings you may have encountered before. This is the law, and the law works. It worked for the couple who wanted the penthouse. It worked for the man who wanted the new position. And it will work for you if you apply it. But you must understand what they did. They did not beg. They did not hope. They did not wait for conditions to change before they allowed themselves to feel satisfied. They assumed the end first. They felt it done before it was done. And in assuming it, they set the law in motion. And the law brought it to pass. So now, let me teach you the law as it applies to money. And I'm going to be very direct with you, very clear. Because if you miss this, if you misunderstand this, you will continue to struggle. You will continue to work hard and see little result. You will continue to feel like you are doing everything right, and still the money does not come. But if you truly hear what I am saying, if you absorb it into the very core of your being, everything changes. Your entire relationship with money changes. Your entire experience of life changes. So listen carefully. The first thing you must understand is this. You are praying all the time. Not with words necessarily. Not in a church or on your knees. But with your assumptions. With your inner talking. With your habitual feeling about yourself. Every thought you think is a prayer. Every assumption you make is a command to the universe. Every feeling you dwell in is a seed planted in the garden of consciousness. And what you plant you will harvest. This is the law, and it does not care whether you know about it or not. It is operating in your life right now. This very moment. When you say, I need money, you are praying to the God of lack. When you say, I hope things get better, you are praying to the God of uncertainty. When you check your bank account with fear, when you worry about bills, when you stress about the future, you are bowing before the altar of insufficiency, and your prayers are being answered. You are receiving exactly what you are asking for. You are getting more need, more lack, more insufficiency. Because the universe does not hear your words, the universe hears your assumptions. And your assumption is I do not have, and so you do not have. But here is the beautiful reversal. When you claim I am wealthy, when you assume the feeling of already having, when you fall asleep satisfied and complete, you are praying the only prayer that can change your financial life. You are praying from the yen instead of for the end. You are claiming instead of begging. You are assuming instead of hoping. And this prayer, this assumption must be answered. Because God is not a being outside of you who decides whether to grant your request. God is your own wonderful human imagination. God is the I am within you. And whatever you claim after I am, you become. This is the law. Let me explain it another way. When you say I will be wealthy, you are confessing that you are not wealthy. Now the future tense is a denial of present possession. I will be is the same as saying I am not. And because you are claiming I am not is what you get. But when you say I am wealthy, you are claiming it now. You are identifying with it now. You are wearing it now. And because you are wearing it in consciousness, it must appear in form. This is why the Bible says when ye pray, believe ye have received and you shall receive. Not believe you will receive. Believe you have received. Present perfect tense already done, already accomplished, already yours. Your inner speech is your prayer without ceasing. Every day you talk to yourself. You have conversations in your mind. You rehearse dialogues. You narrate your life, and most of the time, you are not even aware of what you are saying. But your inner speech is creating your world. If your inner speech is filled with complaints about money, with worries about bills, with fears about the future, then you are praying the prayer of poverty, and poverty must answer. But if your inner speech is filled with statements of abundance, with claims of sufficiency, with the assumption of wealth, then you are praying the prayer of prosperity, and prosperity must answer. Listen to yourself for one day. Listen to what you say after the words I am. Do you say I am broke? I am struggling. I am worried. I am behind. Then you have crowned these things as your Lord and Master. The universe is serving you exactly what you have commanded. But if you change your inner speech, if you begin to say, I am wealthy, I am abundant, I am secure, I am free, then you change your command, and the universe must serve the new command. This is the law of assumption. It is impersonal. It is precise. It works. Now, here is where it gets radical. Are you ready? Consciousness is the only reality. Not money, not the economy, not your bank account. Consciousness. Everything else is a shadow, a reflection, a frozen form of an inner state. You have been treating the shadow as if it were the substance. You have been worshiping the mirror instead of the face. You have been trying to change the echo instead of the voice. And that is why nothing has changed. Because you cannot change an effect. You can only change the cause. And the cause is consciousness. Let me give you a metaphor that will make this clear. Imagine you are standing in front of a mirror, and you see your reflection frowning. You don't like the frown. You want the reflection to smile. So, what do? Do you reach out and try to change the reflection? Do you try to push the corners of the reflection's mouth up into a smile? Of course not. That would be insane. The reflection is not real. The reflection is just light bouncing off glass. You cannot change it directly. The only way to change the reflection is to change your own face. You smile and the reflection smiles. You change the cause and the effect changes automatically. Your entire world is the mirror. Your consciousness is the face. Everything you see in your financial life, the job, the salary, the bank account, the bills, the debts, the opportunities, the closed doors, all of it is the reflection. And you have been trying to change the reflection without changing your face. You have been trying to get money without becoming wealthy in consciousness. You have been trying to pay off debt without claiming freedom in consciousness. You have been trying to get the job without assuming the state of employed in consciousness, and it does not work. It cannot work. The reflection cannot change until the face changes. Your outer world cannot change until your inner world changes. Let me give you a real-life example of how this works. Suppose you want a raise at your job. The old way of thinking would be to work harder, to prove your value, to make yourself indispensable, to ask your boss at the right time in the right way. You would try to change the outer circumstances, the boss's opinion of you, the company's budget, the timing of the request. You would be trying to change the reflection, and maybe it would work. Maybe you would get the raise. But more likely you would not, because the reflection resists change when the face remains the same. But if you understand the law, you would approach it differently. You would not try to change your boss's opinion. You would change your own consciousness. You would assume you are already earning what you desire. You would feel into the state of being well, paid, valued, abundant. You would imagine checking your pay stub and seeing the higher amount. You would feel the satisfaction of that. You would live from the end. And from that state of consciousness, You might still ask for the raise. You might still work hard. But now you would be working from the consciousness of already having it, not from the consciousness of needing it. And your boss being you pushed out would no choice but to reflect back to you what you are claiming in consciousness. The raise would come maybe from your current boss, maybe from a new opportunity that appears, maybe from an unexpected source. But it would come because the outer must reflect the inner. Or suppose you want to get out of debt. The old way would be to create a budget, to cut expenses, to work extra jobs, to send more money to your creditors. You would be trying to change the debt directly. You would be trying to manipulate the numbers. You would be trying to fix the reflection. And yes, this might reduce the debt slowly over time, but it would be exhausting. It would be a struggle. It would be working from the consciousness of being in debt. And as long as you are in that consciousness, even if you pay off one debt, another will appear because the cause has not changed. But if you apply the law, you would change your consciousness first. You would assume you are debt-free. You would feel into the state of financial freedom. You would imagine checking your accounts and seeing zero balances owed. You would feel the relief, the lightness, the peace of that you would live from the end. And from that state, debt would begin to dissolve. Maybe a creditor would forgive a balance. Maybe an unexpected sum of money would appear to pay it off. Maybe your income would increase and the payment would become easy. The how does not matter. What matters is that you change the cause, your consciousness, and the effect. The debt had no choice but to change in response. This is why I tell you trying to change the outside world. The outside world is not the problem. The outside world is just the mirror. You are the problem. Your consciousness is the problem. Or rather, your consciousness is the solution. Change it and everything changes. Remain in the old consciousness, and no amount of outer effort will change your experience. So here is the secret. If you want more money, you must stop trying to get money and start being the consciousness of wealth. If you want freedom from debt, you must stop fighting debt and start assuming the consciousness of freedom. If you want the perfect job, you must stop searching for the job and start being the consciousness of one who is perfectly employed. You change the face and the mirror has no choice but to reflect the change. This is the only way. There is no other way. All effort to change the outer, while the inner remains the same, is wasted effort. It is rearranging furniture in a photograph. It is trying to change the effect while protecting the cause. Now I can hear you asking, but how? How do I change my consciousness when my bank account is empty? How do I feel wealthy when I'm looking at bills I cannot pay? How do I assume the end when the present circumstances are screaming the opposite? This is the question everyone asks. And the answer is this. You must learn to live from the end instead of thinking from the beginning. You must learn to think from your desire instead of thinking of your desire. You must learn to occupy the state instead of wishing you were in the state. Let me explain what I mean by living from the end. Most people think of their desire. They stand in lack and look at wealth. They stand in poverty and think about abundance. They stand in the problem and imagine the solution. But all the while they remain in the state of lack, poverty, and problem. They are thinking of the end, but they are not thinking from the end. And thinking of the end changes nothing. It is just wishing. It is just hoping. It is just wanting. And wanting perpetuates the state of want. But living from the end is different. Living from the end means you assume the desire is already fulfilled. You do not think about having money. You think from the state of having money. You do not imagine being wealthy. You imagine from the state of being wealthy. You ask yourself, if my desire were already realized, how would I feel? What would I be doing? How would I see the world? And then you enter that feeling. You occupy that state. You become it in consciousness. And from that state, you think, you speak, you act, you live. This is subtle but crucial. Let me illustrate the difference with a specific example. Suppose you desire 10,000. If you are thinking of the desire, you would sit and visualize the money. You would see yourself receiving it. You would imagine it coming to you. You would picture your bank account with the new balance. But notice in all of this, you are still the person who does not have the money. You are outside the desire looking at it, hoping for it, trying to pull it towards you. You are in the state of wanting, and wanting is a state of lack. But if you are thinking from the desire, if you were living from the end, you would do it completely differently. You would not visualize receiving the money. You would visualize having already received it. You would not imagine it coming. You would imagine it here. You would ask yourself, if I already had this 10,000, what would I be doing right now? And maybe the answer is, I would feel relieved. I would feel secure. I would be planning that trip I've wanted to take. I would be paying off that's been worrying me. So you enter that feeling. You feel the relief. You feel the security. You imagine planning the trip. You imagine the debt being paid. You live in the consciousness of one who has the money, not one who wants the money. Let me give you another example. Suppose you want a better job. If you are thinking of the desire, you would imagine applying for jobs, going to interviews, hoping someone hires you. You would see yourself trying to get the job. But again, notice the state you are in trying to get, hoping for, waiting to receive. You are in lack. But if you are thinking from the desire, you would imagine already being in the job. You would see yourself at your new desk doing the work, receiving the salary, enjoying the respect and value. You would not imagine the journey to the job. You would imagine being there. You would live from the end. Do you see the difference? One is thinking of. One is standing outside the desire looking in. One is standing inside the desire looking out. One is the consciousness of wanting. One is the consciousness of having, and only the consciousness of having can manifest. Only thinking from the end brings the into being. Let me give you a practical example. Suppose you desire a large sum of money. Let's say you need $10,000. Most people would think of the money. They would imagine having it, holding it, counting it. They would picture their bank account with the new balance. But all the while they are thinking from the state of not having it. They are looking at the money as something separate, something outside, something they need to get. And as long as they're in the state of needing to get it, they do not have it. And because they do not have it in consciousness, it cannot manifest. But if you live from the end, you would do this differently. You would ask yourself, if I already had the 10,000, what would I be doing right now? How would I feel? And maybe the answer is, I would feel relieved. I would feel secure. I would feel free. So, you enter that feeling. You close your eyes and you feel relief. You feel security. You feel freedom. You don't imagine the money itself. You imagine the state you would be in if the money were already yours. You imagine what you would do with the money. Maybe you would pay off a debt. So you imagine the debt being paid. You see the bill marked paid in full. You feel the satisfaction of that. Or maybe you would take a trip. So you imagine being on the trip. You feel the joy of that. You think from the end, not of the end. When you do this, something shifts. You are no longer wanting. You are no longer needing. You are having. In consciousness, the money is already yours. The debt is already paid. The trip is already taken. And when you live in that state, when you occupy it fully, the outer world must conform. The money comes maybe from a source you never expected. Maybe in a way you never planned, but it comes because the outer is always a reflection of the inner. Change the inner and the outer must change. Now here is the part that most people miss. You must do this from a state of rest, not effort. Living from the end is not forcing. It is not straining. It is not trying hard to believe something you do not believe. It is simply assuming. It is putting on a new state of consciousness the way you would put on a coat. You do not struggle into a coat. You do not work hard to wear it. You simply put it on, and once it is on, you are wearing it. You do not think about wearing it. You just are wearing it. The same is true of a state of consciousness. You simply assume it. You put it on, and then you live in it naturally, easily, without effort. This is what I call the Sabbath. The Sabbath is not a day of the week. The Sabbath is a state of rest. It is the feeling that it is done. The feeling that you do not need to do anything else. The feeling of completion, of satisfaction, of having arrived. When you truly assume the state of the wish fulfilled, you enter the Sabbath. You stop striving. You stop worrying. You stop checking and trying to make it happen. You simply rest in the knowledge that it is done. And that rest, that peace, that Sabbath is the sign that you have truly assumed. And once you have assumed, manifestation is guaranteed. It is law. Let me tell you something else. You must learn to enter of the wish fulfilled, and the feeling is the secret. Visualization without feeling is worthless. You can imagine money all day long, but if you do not feel wealthy, you are wasting your time. You can see yourself in the mansion, driving the car, wearing the clothes. But if you do not feel the way you would feel if those things were already yours, you are just daydreaming. Feeling is the secret. Feeling is the power that moves the law. Feeling is the confirmation that you are in the state. Now, many people misunderstand what I mean by feeling. They think I mean emotion, excitement, joy, happiness. And yes, sometimes those emotions are present. But that is not what I mean. The feeling I am talking about is not an emotion. It is a state. It is the sense of being. It is the inner knowing that you are the thing you desire to be. It is the naturalness, the ease, the taken-for-granted quality of already having. Let me explain this more clearly. Suppose you are sitting in your living room right now. Do you feel excited about sitting in your living room? Probably not. Do you feel emotional about it? Why? Because it is natural to you. It is yours. It is a fact of your life. You take it for granted. You simply are someone who has a living room, and sitting in it requires no effort, No excitement, no emotion. It just is. That is the feeling I'm talking about. That naturalness, that ease, that sense of it being a settled fact. When you truly assume wealth, you do not feel constantly excited about it. You feel natural about it. You feel, of course, I'm wealthy. Of course, I have abundance. Of course, money flows to me. It is not a big deal. It is not special. It is just the way it is. This is the feeling of the wish fulfilled. It is calm. It is peaceful. It is certain. It is natural. So when I tell you to feel the wish fulfilled, I do not mean you must work yourself up into a state of excitement or joy. I mean you must enter the state of naturalness. You must feel what it would feel. Like if your desire were already such a normal, established part of your life that you no longer think about it. You no longer question it. You simply live it. That is the feeling. That is the secret. So how do you find the feeling? You ask yourself a simple question. How would I feel if my desire were already realized? And you wait for the answer. Maybe the answer is joy. Maybe it is relief. Maybe it is peace. Maybe it is excitement. Maybe it is gratitude. Whatever the feeling is, you identify it and then you enter it. You let it fill you. You let it saturate you. You become it. And when you are in the sailing, you know you are in the state. And when you are in the state, you are creating. You are impressing consciousness. You are setting the law in motion. But here is what many people do wrong. They try to force the feeling. They try to manufacture it. They sit and say, I should feel wealthy. I should feel abundant. And they work at it. They strain at it. They try to convince themselves. And this does not work because trying is a confession that you do not already have. Forcing is a confession of lack. Straining is a confession of absence. The feeling of the wish fulfilled is not forced. It is assumed. It is natural. It is easy. You do not work at feeling like you have a living room. You simply do. You do not try to convince yourself that you are sitting in a chair. You simply are. The same is true of wealth. When you truly assume it, the feeling comes naturally. It is effortless. It is simple. You just are wealthy. You just do have abundance. It is a fact in consciousness, and the feeling flows from that fact. So do not strain. Do not force. Do not work at the feeling. Simply assume, simply claim, simply enter the state. Tell yourself, I am wealthy, and let the feeling of that settle over you. Notice how it feels to be wealthy. Notice the relief, the peace, the freedom. And dwell there, live there. Make that your home in consciousness, and the outer world will conform. But here is the test. If you think about your desire and feel anxiety, you are not in the state. If you think about money and feel fear, you are not in the state. If you imagine abundance and feel doubt, you are not in the state. Anxiety, fear, doubt. These feelings tell you that you are still in the state of lack. You are thinking of the desire, not from it. You are wanting, not having. And wanting gets you more wanting. But if you can think about your desire and feel satisfaction, if you can imagine abundance and feel peace, if you can see the wish fulfilled and feel the naturalness of it, then you are in the state. And in the state, creation is effortless. The law moves on your behalf. The bridge of incidents begins to form, and all you have to do is walk across it when it appears. Now I want to teach you something that most people never discover. You can change your past. Not the facts of the past, but the meaning of the past. Not the events, but your relationship to them. This is called revision. And revision is one of the most powerful techniques I can give you for changing your financial life. Here is how it works. Every day things happen. Some of them are pleasant, some of them are unpleasant, some of them confirm your desire. Some of them seem to contradict it. And every night before you fall asleep, you review your day. You remember what happened. You replay the scenes in your mind. And whatever you replay, you reinforce. If you replay the negative events, if you go to sleep feeling defeated, you are impressing consciousness with defeat. And defeat is what you will experience tomorrow. But if you revise the day, if you change the unpleasant events in your imagination, if you replay them the way you wish they had happened, you change the impression. And when you change the impression, you change the future. Let me give you a specific example. Suppose you checked your bank account today and saw that it was nearly empty. You felt fear. You felt anxiety. You felt that sinking feeling in your stomach. That is an unpleasant event. That is an impression of lack. And if you go to sleep holding that impression, you will wake up tomorrow in the same state of lack. The outer may change slightly, but the inner will remain the same. And the outer always follows the inner. But you can revise it. Tonight, before you fall asleep, you go back to that moment in your imagination. You see yourself checking your bank account. But this time, instead of seeing lack, you see abundance. Instead of seeing a low balance, you see a high balance. Instead of feeling fear, you feel satisfaction. You hear yourself saying, "Look at that. Plenty more than enough." And you feel the relief, the peace, the joy of that. You revise the scene. You change the ending. You rewrite the event in your imagination. And when you do this, you change the impression. You change what is recorded in consciousness. And because consciousness is the only reality, you change your reality. This is not make-believe. This is not pretending. This is surgery on consciousness. You are cutting out the negative impression and replacing it with a positive one. You are removing the seed of lack and planting the seed of abundance. And seeds grow. What you plant in consciousness, you harvest in experience. So plant wisely, revise ruthlessly. Do not let one day end in the consciousness of defeat. Do not go to sleep in lack. Revise, replay, and fall asleep victorious. I cannot emphasize this enough. You must guard the threshold of sleep. The last thought you think, before you drift into unconsciousness, is the seed you plant in the subconscious. And the subconscious is the womb from which all things are born. If you fall asleep feeling poor, you impregnate the subconscious with poverty. And poverty is what will be born into your world. But if you fall asleep feeling wealthy, you impregnate the subconscious with wealth. And wealth is what will be born. This is why I tell you, never go to sleep feeling discouraged or dissatisfied. Never sleep in the consciousness of lack. Always assume the wish fulfilled before you close your eyes. Make it the last thing you do. Make it your nightly discipline. And if you do, you will wake into a world that reflects the assumption you made as you fell asleep. Now let me teach you the specific technique. This is what I call the state akin to sleep, or SATS. It is the most powerful method I know for impressing the subconscious. And here is how you do it. Tonight, as you prepare for bed, you lie down flat on your back. Your head is level with your body. You close your eyes and you relax. You let go of the day. You let go of tension. You let your body grow heavy, drowsy, comfortable. You induce a state of physical immobility, a kind of pleasant latitude where you could move if you wanted to, but you have no desire to move. It feels so good to just lie still. This is the state akin to sleep. You are not asleep yet, but you are on the edge of sleep. You are drowsy, relaxed, deeply at peace. And in this state, you imagine, but you do not imagine the means. You do not imagine how your desire will be fulfilled. You do not try to plan the steps or control the process. You imagine the end. You imagine the wish already fulfilled. You imagine yourself doing something you would do if your desire were already realized. Maybe you imagine yourself holding a bank statement that shows abundance. Maybe you imagine yourself writing a check without worrying whether it will bounce. Maybe you imagine yourself making a purchase you could not afford before. Maybe you imagine a friend congratulating you on your success. It does not matter what the scene is as long as it implies the wish fulfilled. Let me give you some specific examples of scenes you could use for different financial desires. If you want more money in general, you could imagine yourself at an ATM withdrawing cash and feeling satisfied at the large balance displayed. You could imagine a financial advisor saying to you, "Your investments have performed beautifully this year." You could imagine receiving your paycheck and being pleased at the amount. You could imagine shopping for something you want and buying it without checking the price. Any scene that implies you already have the money you desire. If you want a specific job or promotion, imagine being at your new desk in your new office. Imagine a colleague greeting you by your new title. Imagine signing your new employment contract. Imagine receiving your first paycheck from the new position. Imagine the satisfaction of doing work you love and being well compensated for it. If you want freedom from debt, imagine receiving a letter that says your account is paid in full. Imagine shredding bills because you no longer owe anything. Imagine checking your credit report and seeing zero balances. Imagine the feeling of lightness, of freedom, of release that comes from being debt-free. The scene should be short, just a few seconds. You do not need to imagine a long, elaborate story. In fact, the shorter and simpler the scene, the better. Just one moment, one image, one feeling, that is enough. The power is not in the complexity of the scene. The power is in the feeling it generates and the consistency with which you return to it. And you do not just see the scene, you feel it. You enter it. You make it sensory. You hear the sounds. You feel the textures. You see the details. You make it real in your imagination. And most importantly, you feel the feeling. How would you feel if this were happening right now? Relief, joy, satisfaction, gratitude, peace, whatever the feeling is, you let it flood you. You become it. You live in it, and that feeling you drift into sleep. You do not try to stay awake. You do not hold the scene with effort. You simply let yourself go. You relax into unconsciousness. And the last feeling you have is the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Now, what if you cannot visualize? What if you try to see the scene and nothing appears? Do not worry. Not everyone is visual. Some people are more auditory. Some are more kinesthetic. If you cannot see, then hear. Imagine the sounds of the scene. Hear someone congratulating you. Hear yourself saying thank you. Hear the satisfaction in your own voice. Or if you are kinesthetic, feel the texture of the bank statement in your hands. Feel the weight of the checkbook. Feel the warmth of gratitude in your chest. Use whatever sense is most natural to you. The image is not what matters. The feeling is what matters. And the feeling can come through any sense. What if your mind wanders? What if you start the scene and then find yourself thinking about something else? This is normal. Do not fight it. Do not get frustrated. Simply notice that you have wandered and gently bring yourself back to the scene. Return to the feeling. Return to the assumption. It does not matter how many times you wander. What matters is that you keep returning, and eventually you will relax into sleep from the right state. What if you fall asleep before you finish the scene? Perfect. That is actually ideal. You are not trying to stay awake. You are trying to fall asleep from the feeling of the wish fulfilled. If you drift off in the middle of the scene, that means you are doing it right. The subconscious receives the impression. The seed is planted and the law begins to work. When you do this, you are impressing the subconscious. You are planting the seed. You are making the assumption. And the subconscious does not argue. It does not question. It does not doubt. It simply accepts what you give it and begins to create from that. It works in the dark beneath your awareness, organizing circumstances, arranging events, drawing people and opportunities into your path. You do not see it working. You do not feel it working, but it is working. And one day, sooner or later, the thing you impressed will appear in your outer world. It must. It is law. Do this every night. Make it your practice. Not once, not twice, but every single night until the desire manifests. And do not worry about whether you are doing it right. Do not obsess over the details. Do not stress about whether you held the scene long enough or felt the feeling deeply enough. Just do it. Just assume. Just fall asleep in the wish fulfilled and trust the law. The law is smarter than you. The law knows how to bring it about. Your job is simply to assume. The law's job is to manifest. Now, let me address something that I know is on your mind. You are wondering, what do I do during the day? What do I do between the assumption and the manifestation? What do I do while I wait? And here is the answer that will surprise you. Nothing. You do nothing. Oh, you live your life. You go to work. You pay your bills. You take care of your responsibilities. But you do not try to make it happen. You do not scheme. You do not force. You do not manipulate. You do not worry. You simply live from the assumption that it is already done. This is the meaning of the Sabbath. The Sabbath is not an activity. The Sabbath is rest. It is the inner knowing that God is doing the work. And God is your own wonderful human imagination. When you assume, imagination goes to work. Imagination is the creator. Imagination is the power that moves the universe. And imagination does not need your help. Imagination does not need your fear. Imagination does not need your checking and controlling and worrying. Imagination needs only your assumption. You assume and imagination creates. You claim the end and imagination fills in the middle. You rest in the knowledge that it is done and imagination makes it so. So between the assumption and the manifestation you rest. You maintain the state. You live from the end. When doubts come, you do not fight them. You simply return to the assumption. When fears arise, you do not battle them. You simply remember the feeling of the wish fulfilled. When the outer world seems to contradict your assumption, you do not panic. You remember that the outer is just the shadow. And shadows change when the light changes. and you are the light. Your consciousness is the light. Change the light and the shadow must change. Here is a truth that will set you free if you really understand it. You have free will, but not in the way you think. You do not have free will to do. You have free will to assume. You cannot force money to appear. You cannot make the job offer come. You cannot control the outer world. But you can choose what you assume to be true about yourself. You can choose your state of consciousness. You can choose to assume wealth instead of poverty. You can choose to assume success instead of failure. You can choose to assume freedom instead of bondage. And once you make that choice, once you assume the state, everything else happens automatically. The outer world rearranges itself to match the inner state. The bridge of incidents forms. The opportunities appear. The money comes not because you forced it, but because you assumed it. Not because you worked for it, but because you claimed it. Not because you deserved it, but because you identified with it. This is the meaning of righteousness. Righteousness is not moral goodness. Righteousness is right usiness. It is being in the right use of the law. It is the consciousness of already being what you want to be. And righteousness saves you from sin. Sin means to miss the mark. To miss the mark is to fail to achieve your desire. To live in lack is sin. To live in poverty is sin. Not because you are bad, but because you are missing the mark. You are aiming for abundance, but hitting lack. And the reason you are missing is because you are not righteous. You are not in the consciousness of already having. You are in the consciousness of needing, wanting, hoping, and needing. Hoping will never hit the mark. Only righteousness hits the mark. Only the consciousness of already being wealthy makes you wealthy. So seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. The kingdom of God is within you. It is your consciousness. It is your imagination. It is the I am that you are. And righteousness is the feeling of already possessing. When you seek the kingdom first, when you go within and assume the state of the wish fulfilled, all the outer things, the money, the job, the opportunities, the abundance, all of it is added unto you. Not because you chased it, but because you became. Not because you earned it, but because you are it. Let me tell you another secret. Everyone is you pushed out. The people in your world are not separate from you. They are reflections of your consciousness. They are mirrors showing you what you believe. If people treat you poorly, it is because you believe you deserve poor treatment. If people undervalue you, it is because you undervalue yourself. If people do not give you money, it is because you do not give yourself money and consciousness. Everyone is you pushed out. Change your concept of yourself, and everyone in your world changes. Change your assumption about your worth, and people begin to value you. Change your inner talking about money, and people begin to give you money, offer you opportunities, pay you what you are worth. This principle is one of the most powerful and misunderstood teachings I can give you. Let me explain it more fully. You think the people in your life are independent beings making their own choices, having their own opinions of you. And in one sense they are. But in a deeper sense, they are you. They are your consciousness pushed out into form. They must reflect back to you what you believe about yourself. This is law. If you believe you are valuable, people treat you as valuable. If you believe you are worthy of wealth, people pay you well. If you believe you are incompetent, people criticize you. If you believe you are unlucky, people withhold opportunities from you. They have no choice. They are reflections, and reflections must reflect. Let me give you specific examples of how this applies to money. Suppose you want your employer to give you a raise. The old way of thinking would be to try to change your employer's mind. You would work harder, prove your value, make a case for why you deserve more money. You would try to manipulate the mirror. But if your inner assumption is, I am underpaid, I am undervalued, I am not worth more, then no matter how hard you work, your employer will continue to reflect that back to you. He will say no. He will make excuses. He will delay because he is you pushed out and you are claiming undervalued. But if you change your assumption, if you start claiming I am valuable, I am well compensated, I am worth far more than I'm currently receiving, then your employer must change. He has no choice. He is your mirror. And when you change, he changes. He will give you the raise. Or if he does not, a new opportunity will appear where you are compensated according to your new assumption. The how does not matter. What matters is that the outer reflects the inner always. Or suppose you are in business and you want clients to pay you more. The old way would be to raise your prices and hope they accept. But if your inner assumption is I am not worth that much, people will not pay me that, I should feel lucky for what I get, then your clients will bark at the higher price. They will negotiate you down. They will go elsewhere because there you pushed out and you are claiming unworthiness. But if you change your assumption, if you claim I provide immense value, I am worth every penny and more, people gladly pay me well, then your clients must change. They will accept your prices without argument. They will even thank you for your services. They will tell others how valuable you are, because they are reflecting what you believe about yourself. I once worked with a designer who complained bitterly about her employer. She said he was rude, unfair, critical, impossible to please. She was convinced that he was a problem. But I told her he is not the problem. You are the problem. He is simply mirroring back to you your own concept of yourself. You must be carrying on critical conversations with him in your mind. You must be rehearsing arguments, imagining conflicts, assuming he will reject your work. And because you are assuming it, he is doing it. He has no choice. Everyone is you pushed out. So I told her, stop the negative inner conversations. Stop assuming he will be difficult. Instead, assume he is pleased with your work. Assume he values you. Assume he treats you with respect and see what happens. She was skeptical, but she agreed to try. She began to revise her inner conversations. Every time she caught herself imagining a conflict with him, she stopped and imagined the opposite. She imagined him praising her work. She imagined him being kind, respectful, appreciative. She assumed he valued her. And do you know what happened? Within weeks, his entire behavior changed. He became pleasant. He praised her work. He stopped criticizing. He even gave her more responsibility and better pay. Did he change? No, she changed. She changed her assumption about him. And he, being her pushed out, had no choice but to conform to the new assumption. This is true of everyone in your world. Your boss, your clients, your family, your friends, they are all you pushed out. They are all reflections of your inner state. If you want them to change, you must change. If you want them to treat you differently, you must assume they are treating you differently. And when you do, they will. It is law. So, stop blaming others for your financial situation. Stop saying, "My boss won't give me a raise. My clients won't pay me. The economy is bad. The market is down." These are excuses. These are ways of avoiding responsibility. The truth is your boss is you pushed out. Your clients are you pushed out. The economy is you pushed out. If you change your assumption about yourself, all of them must change. They have no choice. You are the operant power. You are the effect. Change the cause. And the effect must change. Now, I want to give you 3 practices, 3 specific things you can do starting tonight to begin changing your financial life. These are not complicated. They are simple, but they are powerful. And if you do them consistently, faithfully, without doubt, you will see results. I guarantee it. The first practice is this. Tonight and every night from now on, as you prepare for sleep, you will assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. You will lie down, relax into the state akin to sleep, and you will imagine a scene that implies your desire is already realized. Do not imagine how it happens. Just imagine the end. Imagine something you would experience if you already had the money you desire. Maybe you imagine signing a contract for a new job with a much higher salary. Maybe you imagine looking at your bank statement and seeing abundance. Maybe you imagine making a purchase without worry. Maybe you imagine a friend congratulating you on your success. Whatever scene you choose, make it vivid, make it sensory. See it, hear it, feel it. And most importantly, feel the feeling. Feel the satisfaction, the relief, the joy, the peace of having your desire. And from that feeling, fall asleep. Do not let your last waking thought be a thought of lack. Let it be a thought of fulfillment. Do this every night without fail. This is your nightly discipline. This is your prayer. This is how you impress the subconscious and set the law in motion. The second practice is this. During the day for the next 7 days, discipline your inner speech. Become aware of what you say to yourself. Listen to your thoughts. Notice what you habitually claim after the words "I am." Every time you catch yourself say "I am broke," "I am struggling," "I am worried," "I am afraid," stop immediately. Stop and replace it with "I am wealthy," "I am abundant," "I am secure," "I am." Say it, hope. Say it as a fact. Declare it, own it. I am wealthy. Not "I will be wealthy." Not "I hope to be wealthy." I am wealthy. Now present tense first person. This is the name of God. I am. And whatever you claim after "I am," you become. So claim wealth, claim abundance. Claim sufficiency. And if it feels like a lie at first, good. That means you are breaking the old pattern. That means you are putting on a new state. Keep saying it. Keep claiming it. And soon it will feel natural. Soon it will feel true. And when it feels true in consciousness, it will become true in manifestation. Let me walk you through a typical day and show you where to apply this. You wake up in the morning. The first thought that comes is "I don't want to go to work. I am tired. I am underpaid." Toss it. "I am energized. I am valued. I am well compensated." You get dressed and look at your clothes and think, "I wish I could afford better clothes." Stop. "I am prosperous. I dress well. I have everything I need." You drive to work and see someone in an expensive car and think, "I could never afford that." Stop. "I am abundant. I drive what I choose to drive. Wealth flows to me easily." You arrive at work. Your colleague complains about money and you start to join in. Stop. Do not participate in poverty conversations. Change the subject or simply remain silent. Or better yet, say something positive. I find money comes to me in unexpected ways. I am always taken care of. Claim abundance even in casual conversation. At lunch. You want to buy something, but check the price first and think, too expensive. I can't afford it. Stop. Do not claim lack. Either buy it and claim I am abundant. I can afford what I desire. Or choose not to buy it, but not from a place of lack. Choose from preference, not from poverty. There is a difference between choosing simplicity and claiming poverty. One is a free choice. The other is a bondage. You get home and check your mail. There is a bill. The old thought is I can't pay this. I am broke. I am in debt. Stop. I am wealthy. This bill is already paid in consciousness. Money flows to me. I am supplied. Even if you cannot pay the bill today, do not claim the state of lack. Claim the state of supply. The outer will follow the inner. If you claim lack, lack continues. If you claim supply, supply comes. Before bed, you review your day and think, I didn't make any progress today. Nothing changed. I am still poor. I am transforming. I am moving into abundance. Every day I am more prosperous. The outer is slow to catch up, but in consciousness, I am already wealthy. And consciousness is the only reality. Do you see? All day long you have opportunities to claim the state you desire or the state you do not desire. Most people unconsciously claim poverty 100 times a day, and they wonder why they remain poor. But you are going to be different. You are going to consciously claim wealth. You are going to discipline your inner speech. You are going to watch if that comes after I am, and make sure it is a thought of abundance, not lack. This is the work. This is the practice, and it works. The third practice is this. Every night before you fall asleep, revise your day. Go back over the events of the day, especially the ones that reinforced lack or fear or limitation. Maybe you checked your account and felt anxiety. Maybe you received a bill and felt overwhelmed. Maybe someone said something that made you feel poor or unworthy. Whatever it was, revise it. Replay the scene in your imagination, but change the ending. See yourself checking the account and smiling. See yourself receiving the bill and feeling confident that it will be paid easily. See the person saying something encouraging instead of discouraging. Change the impression. Change the memory. Change the feeling. And fall asleep with the revised version in your consciousness. Do not let any day end in defeat. Do not go to sleep in lack. Revise, rewrite, reclaim your power. And when you do this consistently, you will begin to see that the outer world starts to shift. The things you revise at night begin to manifest differently during the day because you are changing the foundation. You are changing. Consciousness is the only reality. Let me give you a step-by-step guide for revision. Set aside 10 minutes before sleep. Lie in bed, close your eyes, and mentally review your day from morning to night. As you review, pay attention to your emotional response. When you come to a scene that made you feel bad, fear, anxiety, shame, anger, lack, stop. That is a scene that needs revision. Let us say you had a conversation with your boss today, and he said your performance was not meeting expectations. You felt ashamed, worried about your job, anxious about money. That is a scene to revise. Go back to that moment. See yourself in your boss's office. Hear him speaking, but this time change what he says. Hear him praising you. Hear him saying, "Your performance has been outstanding. We are giving you more responsibility and a raise." Feel the pride, the relief, the satisfaction. Make the revised scene feel real. Make it sensory and hold it until the negative feeling is replaced with a positive feeling. Or suppose you were shopping today and you wanted something, but could not afford it. You felt lack. You felt deprived. You felt poor. That is a scene to revise. Go back to that moment. See yourself in the store looking at the item you wanted, but this time see yourself buying it. Feel the joy of that. See yourself taking it home, enjoying it, feel abundant, feel free, feel wealthy. Replace the feeling of lack with the feeling of having. Or maybe you just checked your bank balance online, and it was lower than you hoped. You felt fear. You felt that sinking feeling. That is a scene to revise. Go back to the computer screen, but this time see a different number. See abundance. See more than enough. Feel the relief. Feel the security. Feel the peace of having plenty. Do not revise only the big events. Revise the small ones too. Revise every moment that reinforced the old state. Every moment that made you feel poor, worried, anxious, lacking. Rewrite them all. Change the endings. Plant new seeds. Because every scene you revise is a seed you pull up and replace with a better one. And what you plant tonight in revision, you harvest tomorrow in experience. Now, some people ask, should I revise only the negative events, or should I also replay the positive ones? My answer is this. If a positive event happened, one that confirmed your desire, that made you feel abundant, that reinforced the state you want, yes, replay it, strengthen it, relive it, feel it again. Let it deepen the impression. But if a negative event happened, do not just replay it, revise it, change it. Do not send yourself to sleep with the impression of defeat. These 3 practices, assuming the wish fulfilled at night, disciplining your inner speech during the day, and revising before sleep, these are your tools. These are your weapons. These are how you change your financial life from the inside out. And they work. I have seen them work for thousands of people. I have seen them work in my own life. And they will work for you if you apply them. But you must apply them. You must do the work. Not the work of the outer world, but the work of consciousness. You must become disciplined in your imagination. You must become vigilant in your assumptions. You must become ruthless in your revision. This is the work. This is the only work that matters. Now I know what you are thinking. You are thinking this sounds too simple. You are thinking surely there must be more to it than this. You are thinking, how can just imagining change my bank account? And I understand your skepticism. I do, because you have been taught that money comes from hard work, from strategy, from being in the right place at the right time, from luck or connections or talent. You have been taught that money is hard to get, that you must struggle for it, fight for it, earn it. And now I am telling you that all you need to do is assume you already have it and it will come. It sounds too easy. It sounds too good to be true. But I am not telling you it is easy. I am telling you it is simple. There is a difference. Simple does not mean effortless. It means uncomplicated. The law is simple. Assume the wish fulfilled and it will manifest. That is simple. But applying it, living it, maintaining it in the face of contradictory evidence, that is not easy. That requires discipline. That requires faith. That requires you to believe the invisible more than the visible, to trust your imagination more than your senses, to live from the end even when the present is screaming the opposite. This is the narrow gate. This is the straight way. Few find it because few are willing to do it. Most people want a technique they can apply once and forget about. Most people want a magic formula that will change their lives without changing them. But this is not that. This is a complete transformation of consciousness. This is a death and resurrection. You must die to the old state and be born into the new. You must let go of everything you believed about money, about yourself, about how the world works. You must become a new person in consciousness. And that is not easy. That is the hardest thing you will ever do. But it is also the only thing that works. So do not come to this teaching looking for shortcuts. Do not come looking for tips and tricks. Come ready to change. Come ready to die to the old and be born to the new. Come ready to assume a new state and live in it, no matter what the outer world says. Come ready to be faithful to the assumption, even when everything seems to contradict it. Come ready to rest in the Sabbath of knowing it is done, even when it does not look done. Come ready to be the person you desire to be in consciousness, even before you are that person in manifestation. This is the narrow gate. This is the way. And if you walk it, you will find what you seek. But you must walk it. No one can walk it for you. Let me tell you something about time. Time is an illusion. There is no past, there is no future, there is only now. And now is where creation happens. Not yesterday, not tomorrow, now. When you assume the wish fulfilled, you are not creating something that will happen in the future. You are creating it now. In consciousness, it is done now. And the outer manifestation is simply the time it takes for the now of consciousness to harden into the now of manifestation. But it is all now. There is no waiting. There is only becoming. You see, when you assume wealth, you do not become wealthy in the future. You become wealthy now in consciousness. And because consciousness is the only reality, you are wealthy. The fact that the bank account has not yet reflected it is irrelevant. The bank account is the shadow. Consciousness is the substance, and the shadow must eventually conform to the substance. It has no choice. It is law. So when you assume, you are not waiting for something to happen. You are acknowledging what has already happened in consciousness. You are claiming what is already yours. You are wearing what is already tailored for you. And in wearing it in consciousness, you make it visible in manifestation. This is why I tell you, do not ask when. Do not ask how long. Do not ask why has not happened yet. These questions come from the state of waiting. And waiting is the confession that you do not have. But you do have in consciousness, you have it now. So stop waiting. Stop looking for it. Stop checking for signs. Just be it. Just live from it. Just assume it. And let the outer world catch up in its own time. It will, it must. But your job is not to make it catch up. Your job is to remain in the state. Your job is to be faithful to the assumption. Your job is to live from the end. And here is the beautiful paradox. When you stop caring about when it will manifest, it manifests faster. When you stop needing to happen, it happens. When you rest in the knowledge that it is already done, it appears because need is the confession of lack. Caring when is the confession of doubt, but rest is the confession of faith. And faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Faith is the assumption, and assumption hardens into fact. So assume and rest and trust and watch your world change. Now let me speak to those of you who've been trying to manifest money for a long time and feel like nothing is working. Let me speak to those of you who have done the techniques, who have visualized and affirmed and assumed, and still the bank account stays the same or gets worse. Let me speak to those of you who are starting to lose hope, who are starting to think this does not work, who are starting to believe you are the exception, the one person for whom the law does not apply. I want to tell you something. The law works. It is working right now. It has never stopped working. But you have been working against it. Here is what is happening. You are assuming during your practice, but you are unassuming during your day. You are claiming wealth at night, but you are claiming poverty during the day. You are living from the end in your imagination, but you are living from the beginning in your thoughts, your speech, your reactions. You are saying I am wealthy in your meditation, but you are saying I am broke in your mind. And the law is responding to your dominant assumption. And your dominant assumption is lack, because you spend 2 minutes assuming wealth and 23 hours and 58 minutes assuming poverty, and you wonder why nothing changes. Let me tell you about a man who almost gave up, but then understood this principle, and everything changed. He came to me after attending my lectures for 6 months. He said, I have been doing everything you taught. I visualize every night. I assume the wish fulfilled, but nothing is happening. In fact, things are getting worse. I lost a client. My car broke down. I had an unexpected medical bill. The universe is working against me. I asked him to describe his days to me. And as he talked, I began to see the problem. He would do his technique at night, assuming wealth, feeling abundant. But then he would wake up in the morning and immediately check his bank account. And when he saw it had not changed, he would feel disappointed, anxious, worried. Throughout the day, he would think about money constantly. He would worry about bills. He would complain to friends about his financial situation. He would see other people's success and feel envious. He would say to himself, I am trying so hard, but nothing is working. I am still broke. Do you see what he was doing? He was assuming wealth for 5 minutes at night and assuming poverty for 24 hours during the day. And the law was responding to the dominant assumption, poverty. His nightly practice was being undone by his daily thoughts. I explained to him that the technique is not magic. It is not a trick you perform and then forget about. The technique is a way to enter a state. And once you enter the state, you must remain in the state. You must live from it. You must think from it. You must speak from it all day long, not just at night. The assumption must become your dwelling place, not a place you visit for a few minutes before sleep. I told him to stop checking his bank account. I told him to stop talking about his financial problems. I told him to stop reacting to bills with fear. I told him to discipline his inner speech, to catch every thought that after I am, and make sure it was a thought of abundance. I told him to revise every negative event before sleep. I told him to live from the end all day every day. He agreed to try, and this time he was faithful. He stopped the poverty talk. He stopped the checking and worrying. He claimed I am wealthy whenever fear would rise. He revised every scene that contradicted his desire. He lived from the end. He maintained the state, and within 3 weeks everything shifted. The client he lost was replaced by 2 new clients at higher rates. A family member gave him money unexpectedly. An old debt was forgiven. His entire financial situation transformed. Not because the technique suddenly started working, but because he finally applied it correctly. He finally remained in the state instead of just visiting it. The technique is not the problem. The law is not the problem. You are the problem. You are not being faithful to the assumption. You are not maintaining the state. You are assuming, and then immediately contradicting the assumption. You are planting a seed, and then digging it up to see if it is growing. You are building a house, and then tearing it down. You are creating, and then destroying. And you are exhausted, and you are frustrated. And you are about to give up. But do not give up. Instead, change your approach. Stop trying to feel wealthy for 5 minutes, and then returning to feeling poor for the rest of the day. Instead, make the assumption you're dwelling. Plate. Stay in it. Do not leave it. When thoughts of lack come, do not fight them. Just return to the assumption. When fears arise, do not battle them. Just return to the assumption. When the bank account screams poverty, do not react. Just return to the assumption. Make the assumption your home. Make it your identity. Make it the state you live in. No matter what the outer world is doing. This is what it means to persist. Persistence is not effort. Persisting is faithfulness. It is staying in the state. It is refusing to leave the consciousness of the wish fulfilled. No matter what evidence the sense is present. It is living from the end, even when the middle is empty. It is resting in the Sabbath, even when the week is chaotic. It is claiming I am wealthy, even when the account says otherwise. This is persistence, and persistence is rewarded always without fail. Let me give you one more story before I close. This is a story about a woman who had been in debt for years. She owed thousands of dollars. She was drowning in bills. She could barely make the minimum payments. She had tried everything. She had worked extra jobs. She had cut expenses. She had borrowed from family. Nothing worked. The debt only grew, and she was desperate. She was about to file for bankruptcy. She was about to give up. Then she found this teaching. She came to one of my lectures, and she heard me say that consciousness is the only reality. That the outer world is a mirror. That she could change her financial life by changing her assumptions. At first, she did not believe it. It sounded too simple, too easy, too good to be true. But she was desperate. She had nothing to lose. So, she decided to try. She told me later that the first few nights were the hardest. She would lie in bed and try to assume she was debt-free. But her mind would immediately argue. How can I assume I'm debt-free when I owe thousands of dollars? How can I feel free when the bills are piling up on my kitchen table? How can I imagine abundance when I can't even pay the minimum payments? It felt like lying. It felt like denying reality. It felt impossible. But she persisted. She kept assuming. She kept returning to the feeling. She would imagine receiving a letter from the credit card company saying her debt was forgiven. She would imagine her credit report showing 0 balances. She would imagine the relief, the freedom, the lightness of being debt-free. And night after night she would fall asleep in that feeling. She did not know how it could possibly happen. She did not see any way out, but she assumed it anyway. She lived from the end. And during the day, Whenever she would think about the debt, whenever fear would rise, whenever she would see a bill in the mail, she would stop. She would take a breath and she would say to herself, I am debt-free. I am wealthy. I am free. She disciplined her inner speech. She revised her reactions. She maintained the state. She told me it was the hardest thing she had ever done. Every external circumstance screamed that she was in debt. Every piece of mail reinforced it. Every phone call from a creditor reminded her. But she refused to accept it as final. She refused to let the outer world dictate her inner state. She claimed freedom in consciousness, even while the outer world showed bondage. It was hard. It felt like lying. But she persisted. She refused to leave the assumption. And then after several weeks of this, something happened. She received a phone call from a lawyer. The lawyer said he had been trying to reach her for months. He had news. Her great-aunt, a woman she had barely known, had passed away, and in her will, she had left a sum of money to this woman. Not a fortune, but enough. Enough to pay off the debt completely. Every single dollar with some left over. The woman was stunned. She had never expected this. She had never even thought of this possibility. She did not even know this aunt had money to leave. But the law had. The law knew the way. The law arranged the bridge. The law brought the money from a source she never would have planned, never would have orchestrated, never would have dreamed, and all she had to do was assume. All she had to do was live from the end. All she had to do was be faithful to the state of debt-free. She paid off every creditor. She watched the balances go to zero. She felt the weight lift from her shoulders. And she told me the most amazing thing was not the money. The most amazing thing was happened to her in the weeks before the money came. She said I became free in consciousness before I became free in circumstance. And once I was free in consciousness, I was truly free. The money was just the outer confirming what had already happened in the inner. This is how the law works. It works in ways you cannot predict. It works through channels you cannot see. It works with an intelligence far beyond your conscious mind. Your job is not to figure out how. Your job is to assume. Your job is to claim the end. Your job is to rest in the knowledge that it is done. And the law, your own wonderful human imagination, does the rest. So now I ask you, are you ready? Are you ready to stop being a victim of circumstances and become the creator of your world? Are you ready to stop begging for money and start being the consciousness of wealth? Are you ready to commit treason against the state of poverty you have been serving and pledge allegiance to the state of abundance? Are you ready to turn away from the mirror and change your face? Are you ready to assume the wish fulfilled and rest in the Sabbath of its accomplishment? If you are ready, then hear what you must do tonight. When you go to bed, you will not fall asleep in lack. You will not rehearse your problems. You will not worry about tomorrow. Tonight, you will assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. You will imagine yourself wealthy, abundant, free. You will feel the satisfaction of that. You will let it fill you. And from that feeling, you will fall asleep. You will make this your practice every single night without fail. This is your discipline. This is your prayer. This is how you create. And during the day, you will discipline your inner speech. You will become aware of what you are claiming after I am. And you will claim wealth. You will claim abundant success. Not as a hope but as a fact. I am wealthy. I am abundant. I am free. You will say it until it feels true. You will claim it until it manifests. This is your work. This is the only work that matters. And every night before sleep, you will revise your day. You will go back over the events that reinforced lack. And you will change them in imagination. You will rewrite them. You will revise them. You will fall asleep victorious, not defeated. You will not let one day end in the consciousness of poverty. This is your power. This is how you change your past and create your future. Do these 3 things. Assume at night, discipline during the day, revise before sleep. Do them faithfully. Do them consistently. Do them no matter what the outer world is doing. And I promise you your financial life will change. It must. It is law. You are not waiting for money to come to you. You are the very substance from which all wealth is made. You are not broken. You are not behind. You are the I am. And wherever I am is, there is the fullness of all. You are not the beggar at the gate. You are the gate. You are not the servant waiting for the master to arrive. You are the master's. You are imagination. You are God. And God does not beg. God commands. And what God commands must appear. So command, assume, claim rest, and watch the whole vast world rearrange itself to accommodate the God you have discovered yourself to be. Tonight, fall asleep wealthy. Not tomorrow. Not when conditions change. To feel it now. Claim it now. Become it now. And when you awaken, walk through your world as the consciousness wealth made manifest. Walk as one who knows. Walk as one who has. Walk as one who is. And the world will bow. The doors will open. The money will come. Because the outer has no choice but to reflect the inner. And you are changing the inner. You are changing consciousness, and consciousness is the only reality. If this teaching has stirred something in you, if you feel the true resonating in your being, then I ask you to do 2 things. First, apply it. Do not just listen and agree, and then return to your old ways. Apply it, practice it, live it, assume the wish fulfilled tonight. Discipline your speech tomorrow. Revise your day every evening. Make this your life. Make this your practice. Make this your new normal and watch what happens. Second, share this message. Let others know that this teaching exists. Like this video so others can find it. Comment below and tell me what assumption you are making tonight as you fall asleep. Your testimony will not you, it will strengthen every soul who reads it. We are all one consciousness. When you rise, we all rise. When you transform, we all transform. So share your victories, share your insights, share your journey. And together we will put imagination as the only God, and that God is within us all. The law is not mine to keep. It is yours to use. It has always been yours. You have just forgotten. But now you remember, now you know. You are not the victim of your bank account. You are the creator of it. You are not at the mercy of money. You are the consciousness from which money flows. You are not poor. You have just been wearing poverty like a costume. And tonight you take it off. Tonight you put on wealth. Tonight you assume the state of abundance. Tonight you become what you have always been but forgot. Tonight you remember that you are God and God lacks nothing. Go now, apply what you have learned. Assume the wish fulfilled. Live from the end. Rest in the Sabbath and watch your entire world transform to match the consciousness you have claimed. It is done. It is finished. All that remains is for you to see it. and you will see it because you are it. You are the I am, and I am is the name of God, and God is all. Now go and thank you.